Welcome to Forgiven Television. I love being with you, and I know some of you love being with me because I got your sweet letters, and I know they are so important to me. I need to hear from you. I need to hear, if that you like the program. It just blesses me good, and I thank you for that. But let me just share something with you. We've had a little problem. We don't understand it. We don't know, don't have to understand it. We're just going by what God has shown us to do. Well, these little envelopes that I've been sending you all for years, for you to send back your offerings, for the television work. And all of a sudden, they stopped coming in. And so we're kind of suspicious that somebody must be getting our offerings because we're not getting them anymore. And just very, very few coming in. And what is coming in is in another envelope. It would be like in a card that you send me, or a just a card, a greeting card of some kind. So really pray about this. And if you don't mind, if you will check the back of your checks, the ones that you have sent, and check the backs of them and see where they were deposited and let me know. That would be such a blessing, such a great blessing for me. So if you could remember to do that, that would be wonderful. Then we would know at least what bank they're going into. And I'm going to move our box number. Now, I've not moved to Kentucky yet, but I have a post office box up there that I can use, and it's the same thing, VCEA, Post Office Box 751, Glasgow, Glasgow, Kentucky, KY 42141. And you can, we'll have it on the screen for you too, but I just want you to know what's going on. It's been very difficult, October, November, and December, and now into January. The funds have just not come in, and neither has any envelopes come in like this. I think maybe one or two we have got, but not very many, and I know that that's wrong. And so just keep praying for us. We're going, God will help us. We will make it. We've always made it, haven't we? You have, I have too. All right, we're going to be preaching today in Mark, the 5th chapter, an old story. All of you know this story of the woman with the issue of blood. But I want to just show you something here that I had never seen until this week. She's desperate. 12 years this woman has been bleeding. You know as a lady, how terrible that is for your body. I don't see how she's still living other than God needed her to show people this miracle all over the world. And this is a miracle. Jesus has just got word from Jairus that his daughter is sick, on the bed of death, and may be dead before they get there. And he's hurrying Jesus on. And the crowd was great. But somehow this woman heard, the lady with the issue of blood, she heard about Jesus coming. She knew she wasn't supposed to be out in public. She knew she wasn't supposed to touch the hem of his garment, but she knew she was going to die if she didn't. How many of you out there know, you know in your spirit, man, that you can't make it unless you touch the hem of his garment? You may not be clean, you may not be pure, you may not be, dotting every I and crossing every T, but you know that you got to have Jesus. You know you can't make it without him. You can't live without him. Well, that's the way this lady was. She knew she couldn't make it without the Lord. And what did she do? She kind of slipped around behind him. She wasn't even supposed to be out in public, according to the law of the land. In that day, she wasn't allowed out in public. And she touched the hem of his garment. Now, I couldn't figure, I know it's bad enough for her to be going through what she's going through, but I knew there had to be a deeper meaning than what this is showing us here, because we don't know the Levitical laws. You see, there's some, look what she said. A certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years and had suffered many things of many physicians and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. Now you can imagine what it was like in those days, if you can imagine. There was no x-ray machines, there's no telling what this woman went through, somebody trying to help her. When she had heard of Jesus, she came in the press behind. She stayed behind the others that were pressing in on him. And she said, I don't have to look at him in the face. He don't have to look at me in the face. All I want to do is touch the hem of his garment. Now, the hem of his garment was very important, very anointed, because he had that garment on of a high priest. You know, he was the priest, and he knew that. He carried that. He had that shawl, that prayer shawl around him. Somebody needed to touch. This woman just needed to touch that prayer shawl, the bottom of it. She didn't ask to touch the part that was kind of near to his heart. She just wanted, just so I can get in there and crawl in there some way without anybody seeing me that knows me, and I can touch the hem of his garment. And she did. She touched the hem of his garment, and she was instantly the blood flow stopped. And she felt the virtue of the Lord pouring in to her. And what was it Jesus said? Jesus said, who touched me? Somebody touched me. And the disciples said, Master, don't you know all these people that are around you? Look how they're crowding around you. How in the world would you know? And then we've got this father that's interceding for his little daughter that's on deathbed, and he's pulling at Jesus saying, come on, you've got to get there quickly. Let's go. You can't stop for anybody. Jesus said, wait a minute, I got to stop for this one. Aren't you glad one day he stopped for you? Yeah, I got to stop for this. This one right here is very important. Very important. There's going to be much written about her. She's an important person. I'm going to make her to become an important person. And all the while, that father was wringing his hands, I'm sure, and said, oh, please, come on. I'm about to lose my little daughter. Only you can be the one to heal her and set her free and give her life again. He turned, who touched me? The disciples said, you see all this crowd around you? And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. The touch of faith. But the woman fearing and trembling, you see this? She knows the law of Leviticus. She knows that law. Knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. You got to do that. You got to fall down before the Lord, and you got to tell him all the truth. You may be living in a half lie. You may have lived that half lie for so long that you actually believe it. But God said, no, you got to tell the whole truth. You want to be made whole. You want to be healed. You want to be set free. You want your family, your home set free. God said, tell the whole truth. Tell the whole truth. And stop piddling around here and there and just doing your own little thing and trying to hide your stuff. Trying to hide. Doing things that you know better than to do. God said, no, stop it. And he said unto her, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of this plague. So away she went, healed, set free. Jesus did it for her. And I said, Lord, why was it so important for her to be set free? Why, Lord? What's the importance of this? And the Lord took me to Leviticus. And I think, let's see, it's Leviticus let me see the 15th chapter and the 19th verse, 15:19. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days. And whosoever touches her shall be unclean until the evening. Now, can you imagine this? This woman had to live. She lived by herself. She had to. Nobody could even come around and touch her. How sad. No wonder she was taking a chance like this. All alone for 12 long years. And let's go on in Leviticus now, here, this 15th chapter. And everything that she lies upon in her separation shall be unclean, and everything also that she sits upon shall be unclean. You see, nobody could come to see her because her bed was unclean. Her chairs were unclean. Her whole house was unclean because of the bleeding that was taking place in her body. And whosoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Look at all the labor that has to go in this. If somebody just accidentally walks in there, they are unclean. If they touch her bed, if they touch her clothing, what a price this woman has paid. What a price. And whosoever touches anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And if it be on her bed or on anything whereon she sits, when he touches it, he shall be unclean until the evening. That afternoon, late that evening, till the sun goes down. He can't do anything but just sit and wait for the sun to go down. He's got all of his clothing has to be washed. He has to bathe himself and cleanse himself and probably pray too a lot. And if any man lies with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, or the blood will be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days. And all the bed whereon he lies shall be unclean. And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanliness shall be as the days of her separation, she shall be unclean. Every bed whereon she lies, all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation, and whatsoever she sits upon shall be unclean as the uncleanliness of her separation. Look at what happens here. No wonder this woman was so desperate. I had never connected these two together before until this week as I was reading Leviticus. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's the woman with the issue of blood that came and persisted, that she had to touch the hem of his garment. Look at all the people that she had probably made miserable in her lifetime without wanting to or realizing it, because they would walk in her home or maybe sit in one of her chairs and they would be unclean. And remember, there wasn't running water unless you ran after it. You had to go to the well and run back with it. There wasn't hot water when you turn a faucet on. There wasn't a faucet to turn on. Can you imagine the labor that this woman has gone through and her friends and her family has gone through just because they sat in a chair in her home? Just because perhaps they walked by to get a wrinkle out of the bed and kind of dust the bed off a little bit. Think about it. Think about what this lady has gone through. No wonder it was such a big thing for Jesus to heal her. No wonder she said, I've done everything I know to do. I've been to every physician. They've taken my money, but I've got nothing to show for it. I'm not any better than I was 12 years ago when I began. Let me just say this to you today. Oh, you don't have to wait 12 years for his healing. You don't have to wait that long. Our Jesus has healing in his hands, healing in his voice, healing in his heart, healings in his footsteps as he gets closer and closer to us. Aren't you glad, ladies, that we're not living under the Levitical laws of the land? Aren't you glad that Jesus made a different way for us, a better way for us, a more simple way for us, that we don't have to worry about touching someone and being unclean? We don't have to worry about somebody touching us and making us unclean. It's sin that makes us unclean. It's when we operate in sin. It's when we reach out to sin and we commit sin in our bodies. We commit sin in our mind. We commit sin in our heart. I'm telling you, Jesus will leave us alone for a little while and let us wallow in that for a while. And then he will come and he'll say, I want to touch you. Touch me. I am here. I can be touched by your infirmities. And don't we all have some infirmities from time to time? Don't we all have miserable things that happens to us many times? And Jesus says, I'm here. I'm here. As I touched the lady with the issue of blood, or as she touched me. You see, Jesus wasn't looking for her. He was looking for a little girl that the daddy was, saying, please hurry and get to my daughter. Please hurry and get to my daughter. She's dying. And if you come, you can heal her. But yet, he took time. Why did he take time? Because we're serving a timeless God. That's why. We're serving a God that knows, he knows everything. And Jesus, as Jesus tarried there and waited, we read on down in the chapter here, and they say here, while he was speaking, there came a ruler of the synagogue, which said, thy daughter is dead. Why trouble the master any further? Well, this man could have been very, very brokenhearted at this time. But he still had the master. He was still there beside him. And as soon as Jesus heard the words, see, he's standing there with Jesus. This is what Jesus spoke back to the ruler of the synagogue. Be not afraid, but believe. God is saying to you and I today, be not afraid. Velma, don't let this rule your life. Don't think for a moment that this is going to ruin the ministry where you won't be able to stay on television. God says, I'll make a way where there seems to be no ways to be made. He said, just wait up and let me do this. And we want to do things in the way that God wants it done, in order. We want order in our house. We want order in the church. We want order over any and all postal work out there. We want order. We want the order of God over it. So, friend, this is what's happening here. That man must have just almost fainted when that news came. But that word, he turned probably to him and he said, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just keep on believing. Keep on walking with me. Don't walk in fear. Don't let fear overtake your faith. And sometimes when things happen like this that I've gone through, it can try to overtake your faith. But listen, I'm not living, but the mailbox is not my life. Jesus Christ is my life. Amen? And he's the one that supplies every need we have. Glory to God. And I'm so thankful that he is the one. And I don't have to depend upon something that is, well, maybe yes, maybe no. No maybes. Jesus said, I am. I am. And he looks at that man. He says, now don't believe those words you just heard. He says, don't believe those words you just heard about your daughter. What does Jesus do? He went right on. He followed him right on. And he comes to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and sees this tumult around there. We would say turmoil. And them that wept and wailed greatly. They're already weeping and wailing, over the death of this little girl. And when he was come in, he said to them, why make you this ado? Why are you making all this noise? Why are you weeping like this? Why are you crying? Why are you wailing like this? The damsel is not dead, but sleeps. Now, they've already took her pulse. I'm sure. They probably maybe even covered her face with a sheet of some kind. Jesus, this time, Jesus, you're wrong, the mother could be thinking. This time, Lord, you're wrong. You're wrong. You waited too long. You took too much time with that woman there that touched the hem of your garment. If you hadn't have taken that time with her, then my daughter would still be alive. Oh, how many times do we falsely accuse the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords? How many times do we say, but Lord, if you had just done this for me, I wouldn't have to go through all of this. Lord, if you just go, Lord, and say to those people, Lord Jesus, just go talk to them. Talk to their hearts. Let them know that they're in the wrong. Oh, God always knows best. So he doesn't take everybody in the room with him. I noticed this. He didn't take everybody in there. Listen, in verse 40, this is why he didn't take them in there. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, see, many times you can't have a miracle until you put all the unbelievers out. The ones that really, they'll act like they believe in a miracle, but they don't. They'll say, well, now, if this prayer don't help you, you need to go to a doctor. You really need to go to a doctor. No, we really need to stay with Jesus and just see what Jesus will do. And we'll linger with him for a while. And if nothing is any better, and you pray and you have the liberty to go to a doctor, you get in your car and you go on to the doctor. And God can move through the hands of the doctor. He can move in that doctor's mind and tell that doctor what to do. And they will do exactly what God tells them to do, and they may not even realize it. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, you got to start putting them out. Get them out of your way. Move on for God. Get them out of your way. You don't talk ugly to them. You just don't talk to them. Because they've talked ugly to you, just keep on walking. Keep on doing what God wants you to do. They laughed at him. They scorned him. In other words, they mocked him. They made fun of him. But he walked right on past them. He walked past the mockers. He walked past the Pharisees. But when he had put them all out, he took the father and the mother of the damsel and them that were with him and entered in where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand, the young lady by the hand, and he said to her, Talitha cumi, which is, being interpreted, damsel, I say unto you, arise. Get up. You went to sleep for a little bit. God got to see you probably for a few moments, but he said, you can't stay here with me. You got to go back. You got to go back to your family. And straightway the damsel or the young lady arose and walked, for she was of age 12 years. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. Oh, yes, they were. A resurrection they've had here. Amen. And he charged them straitly that no man should know it. And he commanded that something should be given her to eat. He said, don't go around telling everything that God does for you. You'll make people jealous of you. People will come against you and say ugly things about you when you start telling them everything that Jesus does for you. Believe me, I've been there. I know. I get so excited sometimes. I want to tell. And God say, no, you can't. This is between you. God will say, it's between you, Velma, and me. You can't tell. So isn't it wonderful when he speaks to us? God bless you. Now, if you desire a CD or a DVD of this program, all you have to do is write us and let us know, and we'll get it right in the mail to you and send it out to you. God bless you for watching, and may your day be wonderful.